This is First Presbyterian Church of Kingwood. I'm actually sitting in the sanctuary right now, which was renovated in 2019 as part of the phased construction that Axis Builders did. In 1984, the sanctuary, the narthex, the chapel, the parlor, the restrooms, and the fellowship hall were all constructed. So those were the original church. We also renovated the choir and the library/coffee area. That was an addition to this space in 2000. So as part of this project, it was in two phases. The first phase included the fellowship hall and the choir room. The second phase included the sanctuary, the narthex, the chapel, the parlor, and the restroom. The reason we broke the project into two phases was specifically at the request of the church and the school. They had to continue to operate just as they would if we weren't here. So it's challenging to work on an occupied campus. The way that you circumvent that is through constant communication. We constantly have to think about existing conditions, meaning the air conditioning. We may have to cut service to a certain area. Then we also have to think about just the folks that are coming and going. Then there's a few aspects of, well, we want to worship on Sunday. We have a construction site, so we have to make sure on Fridays that this place is ready for just anyone to come walking up, because they don't anticipate the ongoings of construction, and we don't want them to have to think about it. So what we do is we communicate with the church on any major activities that we have going on, advise them, including the school obviously, of what's taking place so that they don't have any surprises. It's a proactive approach is what we take. Let's talk about our safety statistics associated with the project. We make sure that we always track our man hours. On this one specifically, we had 18,050 man hours. There was no incidents and no recordables. That's something that we've strived to make sure happens on every single project, because every accident is preventable. And the way that we do that is through constant communication, keeping our subcontractors thinking and vigilant to paying attention to what's taking place. Some significant scope items that were taking place in here, obviously we renovated the majority of the structure that was built in 1984. We started with the fellowship hall, which was primarily aesthetic upgrades, flooring, walls, things like that. A few challenges that we came across were that the existing documents that we had didn't show a few things that would have been helpful to know. We'd get the structural engineer involved and redesign a few things to put in some LVL beams to support a structure that we did not know was there. We reconfigured the entire stage, brought it down to a more manageable level. Aesthetic upgrades with paint, flooring, acoustical wall panels, but they also like to worship. And one of the things that we discovered was that the mechanical system was very intrusive. And so we had to reconfigure the mechanical system, redid all the lighting in there, essentially creating a second workspace, a multi-purpose area for that. Adjacent to that was the foyer and entrance, which is a kind of a back entrance to the school. We had to reconfigure a ramp, which we discovered that there was another slab under that. So once again, everybody persevered through constant communication. We had a great design team, great consultants, and great subcontractors. And in the end result, we were able to finish ahead of time to where the school benefited from it and was able to plan their activities on schedule. Another portion of phase one was the choir room. At this church, choir is a big part of service and worship. And so we reconfigured the choir room to match what is going to happen on the chancel. So essentially, when they're singing in there, they're singing in here. We elevated the roof structure in the choir room to try and mimic what we have in here. Within the sanctuary, we essentially, with the exception of the chandeliers, did a complete upgrade in this area. All of the pews were removed, they were refinished, and new cushions were put on them, new flooring. The brick that you see is original. We didn't modify any of that. The challenges that we faced were, this is an open ceiling structure with wood trusses and wood ceilings, so different than a lot of spaces where you can get up into a ceiling and hide things, if you will, to run all these new lights that we have. We had to figure out a creative way to do that. And our electrician did a fantastic job coming up with a plan, an action plan to make that happen. Additionally, the entire AV system was upgraded in here. That gorgeous organ in the background, that obviously was something of concern. When you look at that, protecting that and keeping it safe is very, very important. The Narthex, which is directly outside of the sanctuary, was just kind of a cool little space because originally it was 1984, low ceiling, not a lot of appeal. The library, we did a really nice coffee bar, but also a library that has books in it that are important. So some of those are showcased. And so it's a nice area for everyone to meet. In order to overcome a challenge, or an opportunity, if you will, constant communication and being proactive and looking ahead is how you avoid major issues in the construction industry. When we started this project in June, it was imperative that it was completed by Christmas, December. When we finished, it was November of 2019, ahead of schedule. Like every nonprofit and liturgical organization, budget is key. So this was a construction manager at risk project where we're involved very early. We start developing budgets, working through, talking about the design. We have what we call the Axis 360 degree approach. And we have a diagram that represents that everybody's working together. Everybody's pedaling, if you will. We all have a common goal, and that's to get our client a building that suits or serves exactly what they need it to be at a price that they can afford. But it turned out to be a great space, and they're operating and they're very happy. So through the renovation, we might specifically not have touched part of the community, but we've enabled or helped an organization serve the community in a better and more efficient way. And so if we, by just reconfiguring, reconstructing, remodeling, can catch someone's eye and get them to walk in here, we've accomplished our task.